So today I want to talk about how to take better photos near water. So let's start with the seaside. I see a lot of photos on Facebook that look like this, and frankly, I find them very boring. So it's nice to think about creating some layers, like a foreground with this tidal pool, and then a middle ground with the beach and water, and then the mountains and sky as background. And if you can't layer, then think about adding an object of interest like this bird or a bench. At low tide, it's got a lot of sky and just the beach, so not particularly interesting composition. So for this shot, what I did was I went up to the top of the beach and shot back through some nice driftwood and still got the sense of the low tide. You can look for rocks that are exposed and build them into your scene to break up the sort of vastness of the water. Or this angle where you get more of the full scene. Look for objects like lobster traps or anchors or anything that may be hanging around the beach that you can use. Adding some human interest is nice, but be careful of faces if you don't know the family. Now here I was using the geography of the cove rather than shooting out. I like the curve of the cove and it still gives the sense of the water. And then I stepped back and built in some of this lovely pink granite as foreground. If you do want to shoot just the waves, make sure you're up close. There's something spectacular to see, so it isn't disappointing when you get home and see it on your big screen. Now here I didn't have an object of interest, but I kind of had a triangle shaped by the sand and the rock, had some interesting clouds, and I had a sunburst. So there was enough going on in the photo composition-wise, even though the beach was empty. If it's a well-known spot like Peggy's Cove, try and find something different. Work the scene a little bit so you don't have just the same old kind of shots. Look for some patterns, clusters of objects, interesting designs in low tide. Obviously, there's going to be boats around water, and I like to shoot boats in less than ideal weather conditions because I find it makes it interesting. And don't always think the boat has to actually be in the water. So instead of this at sunset, try something like this to make it a little more interesting. Or this. Now shooting lakeside is very similar to shooting at the ocean, but a little trickier because you don't even have the interest of the surf. So a mountain lake like this, to me, looks better when I step back a little bit and got some foreground in. Or if you don't want a lot of foreground, you can just add a few rocks or an object of interest. And the object doesn't have to be large to be effective. If you've got staircases at a cottage or something, build them in, can add a lot of interest to your photo and give the sense of depth. Now here I had sort of an empty spot on the bottom left corner, so I just sort of worked the scene a bit and found a different composition and got down a little lower, and that to me balanced the photo nicely. Now here we've got the lovely sunset and the calm water, but they're flat, so it's nice to add some objects of interest, and then people can actually picture themselves sitting there and taking in the scene. Now, what if you're shooting from a boat? And this can be tricky because you're often far away. You may just have a cell phone, so you can't zoom a lot. So I try and use the boat itself, build in the boat, and use the boat for framing. And this was taken with a cell phone. Couldn't zoom, but it got a nice picture. And here it was more to set the mood. The scenery was far away, but it was just showing the start of the day and what it was like, and that I was on this lovely boat. Now here I am on a boat, but it's hard to tell, and it doesn't look like there's much motion going on between the two boats. But just a minute later, and you can tell where I am, and you can feel the motion better. Nice to get detail shots. You can even see a reflection in the chrome there. And here I was on a cruise ship quite far out, so I got the nice angle of the pier, knowing that we weren't going to get any closer. So that's it for today, and happy shooting. Thanks for listening.